The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, reporters scribbling, cameras flashing, spectators leaning forward, eager to witness a billionaire brought down by the law. The judge smirked, flipping through the case files before shaking his head. Then, with a chuckle, he looked up. "Elon Musk, the genius billionaire who thinks he's above the law," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. The prosecution's lawyer grinned, confident that today would be nothing more than a public takedown. Laughter rippled through the gallery, but Musk? He didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He didn't even smirk back. The judge leaned in. "This isn't Twitter, Mr. Musk. This is a courtroom." The prosecution added fuel to the fire. "Today we prove that even the wealthiest man in the world can't escape justice." Everyone thought they knew how this would end. The evidence was stacked against him. The verdict seemed inevitable. Then Musk finally spoke. Just one sentence. And in that moment, the entire courtroom froze. What happened next would change everything, flipping the case on its head, exposing the cracks in the system, and leaving even the judge speechless. Want to see how Musk turned the tables? Stick around and don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing stories like this. The packed courtroom buzzed with murmurs and camera flashes, the tension thick and anticipation electric. The judge, an older man with piercing eyes, flipped through a stack of papers, exhaling sharply as he shook his head and looked up. Mr. Stark, the billionaire, the genius, the man who believes rules don't apply to him. The judge smirked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. A ripple of laughter spread through the room. The prosecution's lawyer, a sharp-dressed man in his 40s, grinned. This was going to be too easy. "Ladies and gentlemen," the prosecutor began confidently, "we are here today because one man believes his brilliance places him above the law. Tony Stark has built an empire on innovation, but today he stands accused of reckless negligence, blatantly disregarding regulations designed to protect people." The gallery leaned in, reporters scribbling furiously. Stark, however, didn't react. He sat back, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The judge leaned forward, his smirk growing. "Mr. Stark, I hope you understand the seriousness of these accusations. This isn't a tech conference where you can dazzle us with a flashy keynote." More chuckles from the crowd, but Stark remained still, his eyes locked on the judge. The prosecutor flipped through his documents with dramatic flair. "Your Honor, this is more than just corporate misbehavior. This is a pattern of defiance. Mr. Stark has continuously ignored safety regulations, dismissed legal protocols, and acted as if accountability is beneath him." The judge nodded, clearly amused, tilting his head as he studied Stark. "Mr. Stark, do you plan on defending yourself, or are we just here to watch you work on your next marketing stunt?" Another ripple of laughter filled the courtroom. The prosecutor took the moment to press further. "Perhaps Mr. Stark believes he can charm his way out of this, just like he does with the media. But this is a courtroom, not a movie premiere." The laughter grew. The jury exchanged knowing glances. It seemed like an open and shut case. The judge tapped his gavel lightly. "Mr. Stark, I'd suggest you say something before I start questioning if you even belong here." A beat. For the first time, Stark moved. He exhaled slowly, adjusted his suit, and stood. His eyes scanned the room, a smirk playing on his lips. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, calculated, but laced with amusement. "Your Honor, first of all, I'd like to thank the prosecution for their passionate performance. Very theatrical, almost Oscar-worthy." A wave of murmurs spread through the courtroom. The judge's smirk faded just slightly, sensing a shift. Stark paced slowly. "We keep hearing about rules, about laws, about how I've supposedly disrespected the system. But there's a glaring issue with that argument." He stopped, turned, and locked eyes with the prosecutor. "It assumes the system actually works in the first place." The courtroom went silent. The prosecutor's smirk vanished. The judge leaned back slightly, intrigued. The courtroom was silent, the weight of anticipation hanging in the air as Musk flipped through the legal document in his hands, his movements slow and deliberate. "This entire case relies on the idea that my company violated regulations," he said, his voice calm yet firm. "But let's take a closer look at those regulations, shall we?" He held up the legal text, scanning the pages. "This law, written years ago, was designed for an industry that doesn't even exist in its original form anymore. The language is outdated, the framework is inefficient, and worst of all, he smirked, flipping another page. It contradicts itself. The prosecutor shifted in his seat, suddenly less confident. That's nonsense, he scoffed. Musk raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. Is it? His tone was almost amused. Let's break this down logically. If I were to follow every single clause written here, my company would actually be in violation of another federal mandate. He turned another page, the dramatic motion making the jury lean in closer. So tell me, Your Honor, should I follow this law or the one that directly opposes it? The smirk that had once danced on the judge's lips had completely disappeared. He reached for his glasses, his fingers skimming the text Musk referred to. His lips pressed together in a thin line. Musk continued, unwavering. You see, laws, like physics, are based on principles, and principles should never contradict themselves. But this case, it's built entirely on contradictions. The jury exchanged glances. The energy in the room had shifted. He turned to the prosecutor, his expression unreadable. You assumed I wouldn't understand legal jargon, but I don't need legal jargon to win this case. I just need logic. The judge tapped his fingers against the bench, no longer amused. Musk leaned forward, tapping the thick legal document on the table. His movements were unhurried, deliberate. He wasn't just defending himself anymore. He was leading the discussion. Your Honor, he said, sliding a highlighted page toward the judge, I want to direct your attention to Section 42.3 of the very law the prosecution is relying on. The judge adjusted his glasses, scanning the text. The opposing lawyer, sensing something was off, hurriedly flipped through his own documents. Musk let the silence stretch before speaking again. This law, he said, voice steady, which they claim gives them authority over my company, was written before the internet even existed. A hushed murmur swept through the courtroom. The judge's eyebrows lifted slightly. The prosecutor opened his mouth to counter, but nothing came out. Musk didn't stop. Now let's break this down logically. How do you regulate something using rules that predate its very existence? It's like trying to enforce horse-drawn carriage laws on electric vehicles. It doesn't work. The prosecutor cleared his throat, trying to regain control. Mr. Musk, that's a weak comparison. The principles of the law still apply. Musk cut in smoothly, his voice unwavering. Do they? Because Section 43.1 of the same law directly contradicts the claim your case is built on. He flipped another page, pointing. It states that if a technology falls outside the scope of existing regulation, new standards must be drafted before legal action can be taken. The courtroom froze. The judge's eyes moved quickly over the document, his expression shifting. The prosecutor paled. He hadn't seen that clause. Musk folded his arms, his stance unwavering. So tell me, Your Honor, are we really here to discuss legal violations, or are we watching an attempt to punish innovation using outdated rules? The prosecutor scrambled. That's, Musk smiled. But this time it wasn't a smile of amusement. It was the smile of a man who had just flipped the entire case on its head. The judge set the document down slowly. He was no longer just listening. He was reconsidering everything. The courtroom remained deathly silent as Musk turned another page, his voice calm, controlled. He wasn't arguing. He was teaching. Your Honor, he said, flipping to another marked section, this isn't just about one law. It's about legal consistency. If you enforce one regulation but ignore another that contradicts it, you're not applying justice. You're just picking winners. The prosecutor tensed. Objection, Your Honor. He's manipulating technicalities. These two... Musk turned to him with a slight tilt of his head. You mean the same technicalities your case depends on? Funny how that works, isn't it? The courtroom stilled. The judge, who had once leaned back in amusement, was now leaning forward. He wasn't laughing anymore. Musk continued, unfazed. Let's talk about precedent. In Smithson v's Tech Corp, the ruling was clear. No company can be punished for operating in a legal grey area when existing laws don't cover their innovation. That case was decided in this very court. The judge blinked. He remembered that case, and worse, so did the prosecution. Musk delivered the final blow. So, Your Honor, are we here to apply justice or to punish progress because it doesn't fit inside old rules? Silence. For the first time, the judge wasn't sure who held the power in the room anymore. The prosecutor clenched his jaw, flipping through his notes frantically. Musk had torn through every argument like a wrecking ball, and the judge, who had started this case with a smirk, was now listening intently. This was slipping away. With one last desperate move, the prosecutor grabbed a stack of papers and strode toward the bench. "Your Honor," he announced, his voice loud, forced, "we have new evidence. This document proves that Mr. Musk knowingly disregarded regulations. It's all here in black and white." Musk didn't even flinch. He folded his arms, watching the lawyer dig his own grave. The judge raised an eyebrow, flipping through the pages. "Mr. Musk, do you have anything to say about this?" Musk took a slow step forward. "Of course, Your Honor." He gestured toward the document. "That's fascinating, considering this report was written after the lawsuit was filed." A ripple of murmurs spread through the courtroom. The prosecutor froze. Musk continued, his voice even, unbothered. "If this document was so critical to their case, why did it only appear now? It's not evidence. It's a last-minute attempt to patch the holes in an argument that's already sinking." The judge glanced at the prosecutor, waiting for an explanation. The lawyer had none. Musk delivered the final blow. "Desperation isn't a legal strategy, Counselor. It's just desperation." The lawyer's face turned red, but he had nothing left. For the first time, Musk wasn't just defending himself. He was winning. The courtroom fell silent. The judge, who had once laughed at Musk's defense, now sat deep in thought, his fingers tapping lightly against the bench. Every eye in the room was fixed on him, waiting for his final ruling. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably, his confidence long gone. Musk, on the other hand, stood calm, hands resting on the table, as if he had already predicted this outcome. The judge exhaled, rubbing his temple before speaking. "Mr. Musk, I must admit, I underestimated you." His voice carried a mix of disbelief and respect. "This court entered today with the belief that your actions were reckless, even illegal, but after reviewing the arguments presented, I see that's not the case." A few gasps echoed through the room. The prosecutor stiffened. The judge continued, his tone firm. "You have not only dismantled the accusations against you, but you have also exposed flaws in the way this case was built. The evidence presented by the prosecution has been inconsistent at best, misleading at worst." He shot a glance at the opposing counsel, who looked visibly defeated. Musk remained silent, allowing the moment to sink in. The judge took one final look at the room before delivering his verdict. "The court finds no grounds to proceed with this case further. Mr. Musk, you are free to go." The opposing lawyer's face drained of colour. He opened his mouth to object, but no words came out. Musk simply smirked. He had already known how this would end. A smirk tugged at Musk's lips. Feels like logic did its job. His words spread like wildfire, headlines calling him a legal genius, a master of the courtroom, even the man who outwitted the legal system. The case wasn't just a victory for Musk, it was a wake-up call. Legal experts debated how his argument had exposed flaws in the system. Corporate lawyers, once confident in their methods, began re-examining their cases, wondering if they too would be outmaneuvered the way Musk had done so effortlessly. The judge, who had once laughed at him, now spoke of Musk with respect. "He didn't just defend himself, he forced us to rethink everything," he admitted in an interview. But Musk? He had already moved on. For him, it was just another Tuesday, another day, another challenge, another system disrupted. The courtroom had emptied, but the impact of what had just happened lingered in the air. The judge sat back in his chair, fingers lightly tapping against the armrest. He had started the day believing he was the most knowledgeable person in the room, yet by the end it was clear that intelligence wasn't limited to those with a law degree. Elon Musk had done more than just win a case. He had forced the legal system to face its own flaws. The judge, once dismissive, had learned that true understanding could come from the most unexpected places. Musk had taken principles from engineering, innovation and business and applied them to law, proving that complex problems required new ways of thinking. The real question remained: how many other cases had been decided unfairly simply because those challenging the system lacked the power or the voice to expose its weaknesses? The verdict may have been delivered, but the conversation Musk started was far from over. Laws, just like technology, needed to evolve. And Musk had shown that when faced with an outdated system, the right mind could push it toward change, one argument at a time. This case wasn't just about one courtroom battle. It was about challenging outdated systems that go unquestioned. If Elon Musk could expose flaws in the legal process, how many other rules do we accept without thinking? How often do we let outdated laws dictate progress? The real question isn't whether Musk won. It's how many times people lose because they don't have the power to fight back. What do you think? Should laws evolve just like technology, or should tradition always win? Let us know your thoughts. The conversation is just getting started.